Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Frank Dafa from the East African Business Council. So I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome to our webinar today. Um, we are still waiting for some of our colleagues to join. So we kindly ask you to give us some minutes. 10 minutes past 10, we are going to start. So for the time being, we ask you to use our chat room to introduce yourself and get to know each other. So immediately 10 past 10, we are going to start. Also, in the meantime, I ask our presenters who are going to present today to raise their hands so that we can also identify them and give them the mics to speak. Thank you.
Hello?
Sorry, Muteas, did you want to say something?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, Matthias.
Yes, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah, I'm Mr. Martel Mendonça from Angola, and I'm the manager of the company, Mendangela Company. The company is a part of the fishing company, and we are open, or the company start being open from 2018, and then we are trying to come step by step. Now we have a plan to get a business like uh, make fish for aquaculture fish. Did you get me?
Yes,
Hello?
I got you, but we were saying if you want to do any introductions, please use the chat room.
Yes. Oh, the short
Yes, so
form.
no, you can chat. You can put the information
Ah,
in writing.
ah,
Yes,
ah,
that way we'll be
okay.
able to follow up much better. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I will do it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mm.
Yes, it is on now. Okay. I'll just. Is it okay now?
Hello, good morning once again. Hello, hope I'm audible. So my name is Frank Dapper. I would like to take this opportunity to once again welcome you to our webinar today on sustainable agriculture practices. So as we begin our program today, we'd like to go through some ground rules. While you are on this platform, we urge you to kindly mute your mic and to please, if you have any issue, you can raise your hand and we will identify you in the audience and we'll give you a permission to speak. But also you can use the chat room to put in your question or any other intervention that you would want us to address. In the meantime, we are also trying to identify the presenters for today. So in case you have not been given presenter status, please raise your hand. We are going to give you that capacity to share your presentation, but also to open your mic. Without any further ado, today our program is going to run from now up to noon, hopefully. And we are going to have 4 presenters. But for the start, we have an opening session where we have our CEO, Mr. John Bosco Kalisa, who is going to give us some few remarks. And then we are going to finish with a few remarks, also a word of greeting from our colleague Lydia from GIZ. So, Mr. CEO, I welcome you for the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Frank. And I want from the onset to thank and appreciate the representative from GIZ. I'm sure Lydia is part of us. And I want to thank her and her team for their continued support to the program. I want to recognize and appreciate EABC members, especially the board members present, our colleagues from EAC Secretariat who are also present, and the entire business fraternity across East Africa, and even those from the rest of the world who have joined this webinar. I want again to wish everyone happy New Year 2024. I'm sure you've started a year with a lot of expectation. The previous year were really grappled by a number of challenges, especially on the sector of today on global food systems that has faced unprecedented challenges from climate change, the Russia-Ukraine crisis, the population growth, economic doubt, and other pressing issues. I was looking at the numbers that almost 57.2 million population in EAC are food insecure. So some go to bed hungry without sufficient food and the nutritious food. Of course, there are a number of factors that have led to that. He highlighted the issue of the recent effect of Russia-Ukraine conflict, but also the lingering effects emanating from COVID-19, the issue of climate change. We are seeing also the issue of debt distress, especially a number of our countries are going through a very difficult period in terms of debt distress, or what we call debt overhang. So we need to work together. We need to work together in terms of looking at our food system, our agriculture practices, and how do we ensure that we build a very strong and a robust, resilient food system. So I thought it is very important to highlight that as the ABC, we conducted 2 studies. One to look at the impact of global food crises on our agriculture sector, especially the food sector. And our finding really highlighted that our systems are very fragile. They are very volatile because 98.2% of agriculture is rain-fed. It depends on rain. So the climate has a detrimental impact on our food production or our food output. We also realized that almost 23% our food is imported. Generally, Africa spends almost annually $60 billion US on food imports, 60 billion United States dollars on food imports. And in actual sense, when 60% of our land is arable, so there is something that is missing. And one of the things is that our policy stance, our policy programs are not really robust to attract investment in the food system and the agriculture sector. So we are, and again, we need to ensure that we work closely with our partner, development partner, government and private sector to catalyze food security in our region, in our continent. And we need to reverse the current trend, which is really not looking good, which is really shocking. So as we engage in this important high-level conference on food security, we need to really reflect on important aspects. And I wanted to share with you a few aspects to really ignite food security and ensure we have a robust food system. And I was looking at a number of interventions that we could work together to reverse the current trend. So one of the interventions I was looking at is our ability to leverage CFTA, Continental Free Trade Area. It is one of our game changer because it envisages removal of tariff and non-tariff barriers, especially for our agriculture sector. So I think that is a key aspect that we need to look into, dive into it, and look at what are the trade instruments we can leverage on to ensure that we enhance our productivity, agriculture productivity. So the second one is to invest in long-term food systems transformation. Of course, that is deploying modern technology. Currently, we are still using rudimentary means of production. So we need to shift. We need a kind of a paradigm shift in terms of the tools and the method we are using in our agriculture sector. We also need to look into our legal and regulatory framework with a view to address high transaction costs. Those who are involved in the food value chain highlights a number of barriers, especially border-related areas, issues, including NTB around our borders, high taxes on our food sector. But above all, also look at storage facilities. Our storage facilities are very outdated. They are not modern, even including transport. We need also to capitalize on the growing interests of our financial institutions such as Equity Bank that has come up with a resilient and recovery strategy where they are looking at how do they invest in agriculture sector. And other financial institutions are very keen now to put money into agriculture sector. The risk perception is going down. You know, a number of banks used to really fear to put their money in agriculture, but we are seeing that a number of banks are changing this trend. They are raising their appetite in terms of investing in agribusiness and agriculture. So we need also to look into our soil fertility and ensure that our soil is provided with sufficient nutrients so that is able to increase the yields. Finally, we need to ensure that we have robust quality infrastructure, as well as we need to leverage on our trade facilitation measures, both at the border and beyond the border, so that we facilitate the flow of food, flow of trade, but also ensure that we take advantage of other mechanisms that are being put in place. So with that, again, I want to really wish you a very fruitful deliberation, but let's dive deeper into a conversation, constructive conversation, and look at those, reflect on those challenges that I've enumerated, and how best can we work together to ensure that we reverse the current trend. As I mentioned, 57 million of East Africans go to bed without food. And we spend, as a continent, we spend 60 billion. EAC, we spend around $10 billion US on food imports, our food bills. In actual sense, when we should be producing enough food to feed our people. So there is something we are not doing properly, and that's why we have this webinar. And again, I want to thank our partner who has been very, very supportive in terms of ensuring that we work together, especially the agents for business and economic development and the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development. They have been really very supportive. They have been providing both technical and financial resources to engage our partner to address these current challenges related to food insecurity in our region. So with that, again, I officially open the meeting, and I want to wish you a very, very good day and a very good deliberation. Asanteni sana. God bless you all.
Thank you, CEO, for that wonderful introduction. So also, I would like to take the opportunity now to welcome Ms. Lydia from GIZ for a few words. Karibu, Lydia.
Thank you, Dafa. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. John Bosco Kalisa, EADC CEO. I would also like to recognize all the board members of EADC present, representative from EAC Secretariat, dear partners and stakeholders. First of all, let me wish you all Happy New Year 2024. As introduced by Dafa, my name is Lydia. I'm an advisor for Agents for Business and Economic Development, AWE, which is the German abbreviation. I am currently in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. AWE is funded by the German government, and we are part of the new initiative called Partners in Transformation. And we are aiming to strengthen and support our partner countries in the socio-ecological transformation through various initiatives. I am here today on behalf of the management of AWE, who couldn't attend for other pressing issues. But I would like to take this opportunity to thank our partners, EADC, for organizing this webinar as part of the webinar series of our joint project to enhance food security in East Africa and mitigate the impact of global crisis, which Mr. Kalisa explained, to improve the food security in East Africa. For the German government, food security is among their key priority areas, and they are trying to collaborate, or we are already collaborating with various partners across the globe in a bid to improve and ensure the food security and we do have a lot of intervention to fight hunger crisis across the globe. We are very happy again to gather here with all of you stakeholders in this webinar, which is very timely with all the crises that are happening currently in the globe and also here in our region. And the main topics of today are climate smart agriculture, organic farming, and also soil health are very relevant to transform and foster sustainable food value chain in East Africa. As AWE, which stands for, in English, Agency for Business and Economic Development, we have a partner network of various sectors, including agri-food, and we are looking forward to continue sectoral exchange and also know-how transfer from Germany, from Europe, here in East Africa, so that we can strengthen the agri-food industry, especially to MSMEs and the smallholder farmers. With those few words, I would like to thank again EABC for organizing this webinar, but also wishing all of you a very interactive webinar, and thanks a lot for great collaboration. Thank you very much. Back to you, Dafa.
Thank you, Lydia. So before we start our program, I just want to once again ask our presenters to raise their hands, because we are currently looking for Miss Nandi, so that we can make you a presenter and you can begin the presentation for today.
Frank, I see a number of participants raising their hand. If you could, or maybe so maybe some presenters, if they can introduce themselves.
Yes, in the platform we already have 2 presenters, but we are looking for the other 2, Marianne and Nandi. So let's see. Okay, I think there's a hand up from someone here who might be Nandi. So give them a mic.
I see also Christine Byaruhanga.
So I think as we try to verify the current hands that are being raised, maybe they can also use the chat to inform us that they are presenters, so that we can identify them and give them the mic. But in the meantime, I think we can go straight to the ones that are here. We have Mr. Yamara Dirpaya from the Technologies for Africa Agricultural Transformation. I think he's part of our presenters and has his mic. So maybe you can use this opportunity to introduce yourself, but also if you're okay, we can do that for you. So Mr. Ndiapaya is the Country Engagement Officer and East African Regional Coordinator for the Technology for Africa Agricultural Transformation Program, and is an agricultural research and development expert. He has many years of experience in CGIAR system, Africa's NARS, and the Nigerian National Agricultural Research and Extension Systems. He holds the Masters of Science degree from Old Dominion University, Norfolk, VA, USA, and the Bachelor of Science Agriculture degree from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Nigeria. He was the Director of Plant Resource Department of the Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria, an organization that coordinates and supervises, regulates the entire national agricultural research system. So just in brief, that is his introduction, but I would like to take the time now to welcome you, Mr. Yarama, so that you can proceed with the presentation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the warm welcome and want to thank the management of EABC for organizing this very important webinar. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. So without ado, I think I will just, if I have your permission, I will share my screen and then I can go into the presentation from that. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? Oh,
Not yet. We cannot see your screen.
okay, let me reshare again because I have tried to share. Let me also change my network because this network might be a little weak. Okay, fine. So you can see my screen here.
Mr. Yamara, if you are having challenges, we can share from our side. So my colleague Gift is going to display.
Okay, it's like I have tried to share, but it doesn't seem to go. Let me just try
We'll share
once.
from our side.
Okay, fine, if you can share from there. Okay, thank you very much. I think I can see the screen. So my name is Yarama Andrepaya. I'm the regional coordinator for Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation in East Africa. I make this presentation of the system. Next slide, please. So this is a brief outline of my presentation. I want us to see what is TAT, what is our vision, rationale, and the consortium we have and our roles. And then we also want to look at who are our technology providers and the enabler compacts. We want to look at a very brief challenge of the challenges and opportunities of agriculture that we have in Africa, but particularly in East Africa. And then why is TAT created and what are our strategies in terms of engagements to deploy these technologies in countries, and then share technologies in action through some of our success stories. Next slide, please. So TAT is actually one of the flagship programs of the African Development Bank initiative of Feed Africa strategy, and TAT seeks to increase agricultural productivity across Africa by deploying proven agricultural technologies to farmers. It is a consortium of about 13 international agricultural research institutions as listed here, and the African Development Bank. We also partner with the national research institutions and stakeholders, as well as other technical and financial partners to promote proven agri-technologies and innovations. Therefore, TAT is involved with partners in engagement and technology brokerage for driving African agricultural transformation through providing technical support in building resilient food systems. Our overall goal as a program is that we want to double crop livestock and fish productivity in Africa by expanding access to productivity increase technologies to at least not less than 14 million smallholder farmers across Africa by 2025. The reality is that today in Africa, we have technologies that exist much more than what the Asians had when they had their green revolution. So we need to get these technologies into the hands of the millions of farmers and scale to raise productivity. Next slide. I have talked about 13 international agricultural research institutions. They are listed here. AITF, which is our compact for maize. Africa Rice is our compact for rice. ICADA for wheat. We have sorghum and millet from ICRISAT. We have cassava from IIT, soybean from IIT. We work with the world vegetables in vegetables. We have SEAT Biodiversity for high iron beans. We have SEEP working on potatoes with us. We have the world fish working on aquaculture, and IRRI for livestock. In addition to these 11 commodity compacts, we also have what we call enabler compacts that work across cutting section among these compacts to provide policy that is headed by AITF. We also have Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa, FARA in Ghana, providing capacity development and technology outreach. And we have IITA using the enabler youth to reach out to youths in agriculture, while IFDC and International Water Management Institute work on soil fertility and water respectively. Next slide, please. Now, I have talked about TAT being a consortium. So one of the members of this consortium is the TAT Clearinghouse. And the Clearinghouse is headquartered at IIT Station in Benin Republic, West Africa. But in the Clearinghouse, it is actually the linchpin for vetting and selecting agricultural technology and scaling them to the public and private sector. So we have the mandate to review, vet, and select proven technologies, considering women, youth, and vulnerable groups in mind. And I'm glad to actually say that our technology scaling expert, technology profiling expert, Bruno, is partly supported by the GIZ. So I'm happy to see GIZ in this partnership here also. We also have the private promotion of technologies to the public sector, which is the purview of the country engagement officers. And then we have also promotion of technologies to private sector, and we have a private sector engagement officer in TAT. Additionally, resources need to mobilize to support this action. So we also have a resource mobilization officer. And then we generally all work together to review and align our work plan of our compacts. The compacts are the international research organizations and the CGIAR and other African research organizations that we work together to provide technologies. Next slide. So this is the structure of that country engagement in Africa. We have a country engagement and partnership coordinator at our head office in the Clearinghouse in Benin Republic. And in each of the 5 regions minus North Africa, we have a regional coordinator that is coordinating the activities of that engagement in those regions. I am the coordinator for East Africa. Next slide. Now, we all agree, and I appreciate the opening statement by the CEO, recognizing the fact that we have some challenges in African agriculture, particularly in East Africa, but also we have opportunities. Crucial among our challenges are climate change issues that are related to disasters of climate, such as droughts, floods, excessive temperature changes. We're finding battling with climate change, which has become a reality of the globe. There is also inadequate use of inputs such as seeds, fertilizers, and limited use of technologies and innovations in our practices, as also agreed by the CEO. And we have poor access to market and to finance, even where these farmers are able to eke out a little production. Lack of market contributes to another big issue. We also have post-harvest losses and low value addition to production, which need to be addressed. Pests and diseases have remained over the ages. Unfortunately, these days we are faced with more emerging pests and diseases. A recent one was in 2023 season. Something terribly happened in West Africa where one pest appeared from nowhere and devastated almost all the farms. We had to raise a lot of teams to go and work there to see if that situation is brought under control. So things like fall armyworm came and many others. Emerging pests are becoming order of the day in Africa. And again, unfortunately, we still have battling issues with insecurity and political fragility in some of our regional member countries. But amidst all these challenges, we also actually have huge opportunities. Yes, East African population is seen as growing high, up to over 450 million people. But these are mostly youths who are very energetic and have the understanding to be able to practice modern agriculture if given the opportunity. So I see them more as an opportunity than anything else. Again, like mentioned, 60% of our land in East Africa is still arable. We actually host in Africa for the world the remaining arable land that can be cultivated that are still lying idle. We also have vast underdeveloped commodity value chains. We've tried to make productions, but the value chains remain very, very much underdeveloped. So there is an opportunity to develop this and bring more income for better livelihoods. There is presence of functional RECs, regional economic communities, such as the East African Community and the like, and also sub-regional research organizations like ASARICA and others. These are opportunities we can exploit. Many of our governments are now making commitments to invest in agriculture, a fact that we all know. There is also growing investment, particularly by the private sector, and I think we need to harness these opportunities. So huge potential for inter-regional cooperation and trade actually exists, but we've not been able to harness the potentials, and I think we need to do this. The last one I will mention here is the growing opportunities in ICT in agriculture. Next slide, please. So because of these challenges that we have in agriculture, we can see that our productivity of some of our commodities have remained low. Look at our banana, we're getting less than half the world average. If we go to maize, we're also getting literally less than half world average. Things like potato, we're just at about average, half of the world average. Rice is still having big rooms for expansion, soybeans, and wheat, among others. We are privileged that in East Africa, we have large volume of animals and populations, that this can actually rise much more higher, geometrically above this, if we give them the required technologies. Next slide. So this is the African agriculture. You realize that our cereals in particular, the last black line you see there is the productivity over so many years that has remained almost stagnant. You go to Latin America, they are rising. You go to Asia, they are rising more. Going to the North Americans and Europe, they are actually geometrically rising, the productivity over the years. But Africa has remained stagnant. Paradoxically, if you look at the right graph, we have been rising in population beyond measure. This population needs to be fed. So the real truth is that Africa can no longer afford to allow hungry people to go to bed. And to do this, we need technologies. Next slide, please. And that's brought up why TAT is created. The Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation, like I said, is a flagship of the African Development Bank. Our responsibility is to catalyze increased agricultural productivity and production to ensure food security and improved livelihood of smallholder farmers, including women, youth, and vulnerable groups in African countries. As an objective, we want to see that we have integration of productivity enhancing technologies that are vetted by us in large-scale agricultural investment programs and projects, mainly funded by AFD, but also by other international and national funders. Next slide. So in doing this, we have an approach. Our approach is to look at what technologies do we have. We have packages of technologies such as soil and water management, technologies in agronomy, good agricultural practices, the excellence in agronomy, digital tools, conservation, regenerative agriculture, integrated pest management, and so on. But we do this with also understanding that agricultural machinery is key if it is gender segregated, and then we make sure we provide harvesting and post-harvest technologies, threshers, and the like. So the need to mechanize African agriculture with equipments that are modern, that are simple to use, that our teeming populations can easily grab, which will definitely lead to reduction of the number of people we invest in working on the farm with handholds is critical. So as TAT, what we do is we prepare value propositions of showcasing our productivity gains of improved varieties. We also have maturity and ecological fit varieties. We also have quality and value merit in terms of biofortifications to enhance nutrition, giving the consumer a choice. And of course, in doing this, seed has been one of the biggest problems. So we also are very much involved in seed systems improvements, particularly drafting seed system roadmaps for member countries and working towards harmonized regional seed policies. Presently, the TAT is trying to work with the African Agricultural Leadership Institute, and we want to partner with the EAC in particular to see if we can work together towards bringing a common seed policy for the East African region. Slide, please. We can one organization cannot do this all. So TAT Clearinghouse, as we sit in TAT Clearinghouse, we believe in partnerships. So we have strategic approaches in developing partnerships with the African Development Bank and other international financial institutions. In fact, yesterday we had a meeting with the Islamic Development Bank, African Development Bank, and IITA, trying to see how we can actually work towards the TAT model to work with the countries, with the private sectors, to make sure that technologies are available in African countries to transform this agriculture. As we do that, we also partner with these sub-regional research organizations, as I earlier mentioned, the regional economic communities. The private sector is key because actually the sustainability of these projects depends on the private sector ownership. So we want to make sure we work with the private sector closely in scaling out these technologies. Of course, the Ministries of Agriculture and the National Agricultural Research and Extension Systems are our partners in every country as we venture into the countries. And as on our side, we use the compacts which come from the International Agricultural Research Systems of the CGIAR and all the African Advanced Research Institutions. So as a consortium, we work in country with stakeholders based on preference of each country to make sure our technologies are integrated into any ongoing projects. Next slide. So going from here, I want to show us technologies in action from various investments we have made in Africa. That offers, next please. That offers over 121 technologies. We're working in over 34 countries of Africa. And like I said, we have 11 commodity compacts and 5 enabler compacts. Now, these 121 technologies can be seen from this TAT e-catalog. If you Google TAT e-catalog here, you will literally visit this site where we have all the technologies working in these African countries as indicated by green marked in the African map. Next slide. So our partnership with regional member countries, we work together to make sure we set forward agricultural transformation pathways. We first study a country together with the country stakeholders. Then we identify what is the need of these countries and we identify what are the best bet technologies. Okay, time is running out. What are the best bet technologies we have? And then along this pathway, we move forward to making sure that at the end, we work together with the stakeholders in country, implementing the technology integration into the projects. Next slide. So we have several footprints in Africa. We have done capacity building of national researchers and extension workers, training of national researchers and statistical data analysis, so many trainings, basically on seed systems, on improved production technologies, on pest control, on post-harvest, and the like. Next slide. Now let me specifically talk about a few crops that we work among these 11 compacts. One is maize, and we have several technologies, including drought-tolerant and high-yielding maize. We also have lethal necrosis disease-resistant varieties, and we do this together with the member countries realizing high potentials. Next slide. Yeah, we also have biofortified pro-vitamin A orange flesh maize. We have Striga weed management techniques. I mean, if you look at the slide to my right down, you can see that Striga is really a very serious matter that renders almost 100% loss in many cases. So Striga management becomes very crucial too. Next slide. From maize, we move to rice, which is one of our cereal crops that are very stable. We have quality seeds in rice. We have nursery management techniques. We have smart valley soil and water management techniques, plant spacing, weed and insect control management techniques. Soil fertility is so crucial in maize, water management and the like. So we have several technologies in rice that are actually better seen on our e-catalog. Next slide. Some of these technologies we have are also improved varieties, such as the Nericas, that can give us up to 7 tons per hectare, as against the 2 point something that we're getting presently. We have several other varieties. So all I can say is that we have a range of varieties adapted to different rice ecologies that can, under good agronomic practices, provide optimum yield and improve productivity. Next slide. Going from rice, we now, next slide. This is still packaging of rice, but I want to run against time. So next slide. Next slide, please. Let me pass rice. Okay, so we also have wheat. Wheat is a very critical crop, very political crop, but actually very necessary crop where Africans spend billions every year importing. And as we all know, the conflict in Ukraine and Russia has exacerbated the issues of wheat. So there is a need for us to now build wheat inward. And that has very good climate-resistant, heat-tolerant wheat varieties that, for example, has been tested in Sudan, tested in Ethiopia, and made marvelous increases. We can do this in many other countries to make sure that we fix the wheat gap. Next slide. This is actually what happened in Ethiopia and in Sudan, where catalytic role of vetted rice technologies, heat-tolerant technologies were taken by the government, and because there was commitment, a political will by Ethiopian government and Sudan government, and they put in resources, over the years you can see how the rice productivity has increased. So this can be replicated in many other countries. We are presently partnering in some few countries like Tanzania and others, trying to see that what happened in Sudan and Ethiopia can actually be replicated in other countries. Next slide. We also have high iron beans, which is very important commercial crop, very important food nutrition crop. And our biodiversity colleagues, our CIAT colleagues are working on this to make sure that apart from the cereals, we also have the legumes come on. So we have several opportunities of technologies in high iron bean, ranging from climate smart varieties, very good agronomic practices, seed handling issues, early generation seed production practices that can be scaled down with partners in member countries. Next slide. We also have very many post-harvest technologies that we have in high iron beans, packaging them into various, even semi-finished products that can easily be cooked at home. So these various recipes are provided. You can see the wonderful packages that our CIAT Biodiversity Complex is doing on high iron beans, and this can be deployed in countries. Next. In soybeans, soybean is not left behind, and we know how much our governments are spending on importation of vegetable oils. Many countries are taking the bull by the horn now, trying to make sure that we reduce these importations. So we have very good climate smart soybean varieties with good agronomy practices equally available to be deployed in countries. Next slide. Orange slash sweet potato has become one of the recent advancements, particularly in school feeding programs across many countries of Africa. And these are very important nutrient-dense commodities. And therefore, our SIP colleagues working together with TAT as our compact have a lot of technologies on orange flesh sweet potatoes also that we can deploy based on demand. Next slide. Livestock is another very serious thing where Africa has lagged behind. But recently, through our IRRI Compact, the International Livestock Research Institute Compact of TADS, we are beginning to put a lot of faces to livestock transformation. Look at this mama who is standing in her local poultry farm. We're given technologies now to be able to bring about transformation of these small-scale industries into a better package industry to make better livelihood for rural farmers. So there are technologies for large scale, there are technologies for medium scale people that are available in poultry with us. Next slide. This is still part of the genetic transformations that we know how hardened our genes of our local poultry are. We want to capitalize on enhancing these genes to make sure that we transform them to faster growth and holders. So IRRI has been doing excellent work on this, and there are now products that can be deployed in countries. Next slide. Now, forage is another serious issue in Africa and in many of our countries. I think we need to combine forage and irrigation facilities to make sure that the clashes of herdsmen and herders are reduced through providing climate adaptive technologies to provide fodder to feed the animals so that we keep the animals away from the farm. And IRRI, through IRRI has a lot of technologies we're already deploying in Burundi, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, and several other countries. It can be done in other countries that need them. Next. Yeah, this is the peels from our cassava. Sometimes they're just thrown and wasted, but you can see the kind of transformation IRRI is putting into the cassava peel, transforming them into animal feeds. These are technologies that can actually be adapted in countries, and it will bring tremendous transformation. Next slide. Aquaculture is another protein source, and we have been somewhat dependent on red meat, which has not been too much health good. So aquaculture through World Fish, the compact, is providing technologies for quality fish seeds, for low-cost fish feeds, value-added fish products. Next. We also have technologies of mass production of fingerlings in Hapa. This has been demonstrated in several of our compact sites in countries where we work. Next slide. We also have the very common in-pond raceway system where we grow rice and aquaculture together, increasing combined effects in terms of getting double yield rather than just depending on only rice. Next slide. Yes, this is mass production of fingerlings in Hapa, which was earlier demonstrated. Next slide. We also have cage culture systems, which are very common to coastal countries, and World Fish through TAT is actually enabling many countries to acquire this simple technology that can treat their diseases, make production much more easier, and restrict the fish within an environment that is less energy wasting. So we get high productivity at the end. Next slide. Cassava technologies. The SAT technology is moving around like wildfire, where we're increasing, very much increasing cassava production in many countries. Recently in DRC, we are beginning to get like the cassava insertion into wheat. That is the blending technology, which was practiced in Nigeria also, so that we can reduce some of the wheat demand by substituting with cassava flours. Several of the countries like Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea-Bissau, Central African Republic, Guinea, DRC, and the like are already imbibing our SAT technology to produce mass cassava for their farmers, and it's increasing cassava production. Our cassava compact is ever ready to assist in any country to making sure that cassava production, not only production, but value addition and processing into various important commodities of market values are transformed. Next slide. This is still cassava technologies, these are, but I will not dwell more on here because of time. Next slide. Sorghum and millet, which is always considered as the Sahel crop. It's a very important staple crop, but unfortunately it had depended all over the years on traditional means of production. Now our ICRISAT compact on sorghum and millet is adding value by providing good agricultural practices, new varieties that are climate resistant, that can withstand the heats and the like. So we have also technologies on millet and sorghum as provided by ICRISAT, not only in production, but also in value addition. As you can see, some of the very simple hand tool processing facilities that easy work for women who have always been overlabored by this threshing business. Next slide. Yeah, we are fostering actually some technology component to some regional member countries recently, like in South Sudan, some countries, some of them requiring even sweet sorghum for the industrial users. Next slide. Now, in all this, I have also talked about enabler compacts, and one of the enabler compacts is actually the capacity development technology outreach, which is hosted by Forum for Agricultural Research. And what we do with FARA is to make sure that we have innovation platforms initiated across all the value chains of the commodities of interest as requested by government. This brings about improved technologies. We impart the knowledge to the people. Then we're also going to working together to be sure that this technology users come together in a consortium under innovation platforms so that they can work in synergy to not only produce, but also have market uptake, and everybody who has interest in this value chain is on board in innovation platform. Next slide. We also have policy compact. In many of our countries, you will agree with me that the problem has not been lack of technologies. The problem has not even been the farmers not willing to do any work, but policies have been not good. So what we do with our policy compact in AITF is that we do rapid country regional policy assessments to bottlenecks hampering agricultural input and output markets. Then we do some stakeholder meetings together to prioritize what policy gaps are there, which we can address together. And then that will offer technical assistance in drafting or revision of regulations governing agricultural inputs such as seed, fertilizers, and the like. And then we capacitate through strengthening for regulatory agencies. The regulatory agencies, we give them training on how best to actually work with the partners to be seen as friends and not as necessarily enemies. And then we give expert advice on policies that will incentivize agricultural production and market access. So through our policy compact, we are actually impacting on a review of policies in many countries, particularly on seeds and inputs, agricultural inputs. And I think we, like I said earlier, we are actually much interested to also see if we can work together with the stakeholders in East Africa towards bringing a regional seed policy for East Africa. Next slide. So the policy compact will increase access to quality seed through accreditation of seed suppliers. We will do assessment of seed policy environments and advocacy for reforms. We also do regional harmonization, like I mentioned earlier, and we support the emergence of competitive commodity value chains so that doing this, we will be creating an enabling environment to facilitate rapid deployment of technologies in Africa. Next slide. If all these technologies that I have mentioned earlier are put to use and partners synergize to work together, then these phases of successful agribusiness, which is the expectations of every farmer, will come to play. You will see productivity increase like what you see in this maize here with this young man. You'll see this woman jubilating because there is a bumper harvest. They have gotten a bumper harvest from their maize. We put smile on the faces of these people. And we can actually catalyze large-scale production investment into countries. And by doing this, not only through the aging farmers, but we can bring on board our young youths who are the actual farmers of tomorrow. Next slide. This comes to my last comments on this presentation, that agriculture is the main means of livelihood in East Africa. There is huge potential that remains unattained. We can attain this together in synergy. Current agricultural practices are actually limiting, but we have opportunities of new technologies that can bridge the gap. Then input supply chains, especially early generation seed systems, are weak and need to be strengthened. Transformation of the agri sector is key to food and nutrition security. Therefore, improved technologies and innovations are critical tools to bring about this transformation. But touch-vetted technologies and innovations are most fitted. We've tested them in many countries. They are available. We can still do it in other countries. So effective country engagement and partnership are the required transformation vehicles, which Touch is ready to partner with any stakeholder to provide. And agri-transformation is possible indeed when Touch Clearinghouse, the compacts, the National Agricultural Research and Extension Systems, and all other stakeholders like the private sector and regional country members work together. Next slide. I want to thank all the Touch compacts as represented on this board and our regional member countries in East Africa, the National Agricultural Research and Extension System, the regional economic communities, these sub-regional research organizations, and of course, EABC for providing this platform to share these technologies, which I believe can lead to partnership. I want to say my last slide. Thank you so much for listening to me. Let's work together and put faces on the face of the African farmers. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yamara. So we are just going to give a very few minutes for questions. In case someone just wants a clarification, kindly just use the opportunity to raise your hand or put it on the chat so that Mr. Yamara can address it. Just like 5 minutes for questions. And also we will be sharing this presentation after the webinar. So in case someone will want to review some of the points, you can be able to access them in the email. Okay, so Mr. Yamara, I think there's just one question in the chat. Somebody wanted to know what initiatives you are doing in terms of medical herbs and medical species. So if you have any information on some of the seeds or interventions that you're doing in that area, kindly provide a response.
Okay, thank you so much. Like I said, TAD is a flagship program with a very specific mandate from the African Development Bank, supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Actually, the clearinghouse is supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Initially, we started with very few crops, but as the days passed by, requests and demands from countries have made us to expand some of the crops. Right now, we don't have a program on herbs, but of course, we are not limited to only these crops we have. Our services are provided based on demand. So if there's a critical demand on Touch to work with some country or some private sectors in herbal crops that are of interest, but they have to be boosted crops actually that are agricultural minded, because our main target of focus is food security and nutrition security. So demand can be placed and we can case by case review them. Now, in terms of other crops, someone is asking, are you open to other crops? Yes, there are some crops that are not in the list, but because of demand by specific country governments, we've had to provide technical assistance. But like I said, technical assistance are always provided at a cost, because we will plan intervention programs together, and then we will have to also see how it can be funded together. So that is open based on interest of stakeholders by demand.
Okay, so I believe also you are, yes. I believe also your response refers to one who was asking about other crops such as coffee, cacao, yes, avocado, and the rest. Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't work directly on those crops, but they can be worked on based on demand. If opportunity exists, we can provide technical assistance. We have institutions that have capacity in that we can bring on board.
Okay. So again,
Now,
I'll ask
someone
you,
is
Mr.
asking, is
Yamala.
interested in the
Yes.
cassava peel issues, and I'll be glad. My address is presented on the presentation. If the presentation can be shared, we can reach out at personal levels and then see how we can go forward from there.
Yes, and that is what I wanted to comment, that for those who are raising their hands, our time is we're a bit behind in time. So I wanted to ask them to put down their questions on the chat, and Mr. Yamara, you can go through them and reply there, but also you can put your contacts so that people can also reach out to you in case they have other issues they want to engage with you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much. So for now, I want to welcome Mr. Vishnu Reddy from IDH. Mr. Reddy, you are there. Kindly, you can open your mic and we'll be giving you an opportunity also to do your presentation. So Mr. Vishnu is a project manager and business analyst at IDH, and he has over 4 years of work experience in smallholder business model analysis across countries and value chains. So Mr. Vishnu, you are very much welcome. Kindly consider our time. I think we started a bit late. So if you can do your presentation, and if you want us to share on our side, you can request us and we'll do that for you.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Try to share my screen.
Sorry, Mr. Reddy, your volume is very down. Maybe
Can you
if
hear me now?
speak loud. Yes.
Is it better now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you.
So can we display on our side or you share your screen?
Let me try from my side. If I can't, then
Okay.
Can you all see my screen?
We can see your screen. Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah, thank you. Hi everyone. Thanks, John and EABC for this opportunity. Yeah, let me get started straight away in the interest of time. So today I'll be presenting on improving the income resilience of coffee farmers through blended service delivery, diverse farming systems, and regenerative agriculture. And I represent IDH. IDH stands for Sustainable Trade Initiative. It's a Netherlands-based development organization, particularly working with smallholder farmers across the world. So for today agenda, I just want to introduce IDH agenda of transforming smallholder agriculture markets, and I'll also explain some concepts, particularly regarding the regenerative agriculture, and quickly introduce where the concept of regenerative agriculture was deployed in a particular project called as Coffee Farmer Income Resilience Program in East Africa, particularly in Kenya and Uganda. And I'll quickly share some key highlights that we got from studying these 5 businesses across these 2 countries, mainly in the coffee value chain, but also related to other crop value chain. So IDH is working with a lot of private organizations and also with the governments of the countries, including Europe and Africa and Asian countries, in transforming the smallholder agriculture markets, both on the side of accessing the services by smallholder farmers and also for smallholder farmers to sell their produce at a good price and at a assured offtake from the market. So we all know what are the challenges that are faced by smallholder farmers, the systemic challenges that leads to unsustainable outcomes for the smallholder farmers, mainly on the low value realization, poor offtake, that is both the price as well as the quantity of offtake, and they don't get sufficient services. And finally, there is a large gap in access to capital for smallholder farmers, that they don't get the required capital both by the farmers themselves and the other businesses that are closely working with these smallholder farmers at the bottom of the value chain. And this is also leading to other challenges in the enabling environment, such as insufficient policy support, insufficient physical infrastructure, and so on. So Our approach, we take a private sector development approach. IDH takes a private sector development approach to solve this systemic problem. So what we do is that we try to work with the smallholder businesses that are working with the smallholder farmers, such that we can work with them to innovate what solutions we can deploy there, and also providing them the technical assistance and impact investment and the capital required for them to deploy those innovations in the smallholder formats, such that the smallholder markets become more efficient and workable for the smallholder farmers themselves. So, and that is engaging with the individual companies, but we also take a systemic approach where we aggregate all these learnings, such that we can see what are the patterns that we are observing from these learnings that we have, and then we can deploy those solutions to other companies that we work with in future. So by coming to the concepts that I want to quickly explain for this study, how we have considered for regenerative agriculture or sustainable agriculture. So as we know, there is no fixed definition for regenerative agriculture. So there are different definitions, but broadly, in principle, they agree to the higher level principles, such as that the regenerative or sustainable agriculture should increase the biodiversity, and mainly it should work to enrich the soil, and finally it should support the environment and ecosystem where this agriculture is being undertaken. So we have chosen, from IDH perspective, we have chosen on two main principles when it comes to regenerative agriculture, that is soil management, and then the functionality on the farm, on functionality on the agro ecosystem. So ultimately, when we say regenerative agriculture, this should lead to the soil restoration, and wherein the productivity increases, and there is less reliance on usage of external inputs, and also the ecosystem should be functional in such that each of the different activities that are undertaken in the farm support one another, such that you don't have to bring in a lot of external inputs, and it is more resilient to any changes in the climate or weather, and even say shortage of water, etc. So that is where we have chosen in our interventions. We want to focus on the soil management and functionality in the farm system. So to achieve this regenerative agriculture system, we are looking at providing blended services to the farmers. So by blended services, what we mean is that the businesses that are working with the smallholder farmers, they might be working in any one particular value chain, but we are encouraging these businesses to take up service delivery for other crops as well. Like, look at the farmers' entire portfolio than just looking at one value chain. So we work primarily with the coffee companies, the companies that are working in the coffee value chain in these two countries, and we wanted to see how these companies can work with the farmers such that they provide services to farmers for all the crops, and also have the business case for themselves. That is, the companies that are providing the services to the farmers should not lose money, right? I mean, they should also have an incentive to provide those services so that it is sustainable in the long run, and it's in their business interest to provide these services, such that it's a win-win consideration for the smallholder farmers who are getting the services and the company that is providing these services to smallholder farmers. And the second aspect is the diversified farming systems. So as we know, the monocropping is very fragile practice. That is, it will lead to erosion of soil fertility, more attack of pests and diseases, and it depletes water and all those problems. So we want to diversify the farming systems to overcome these typical challenges that come up with the monocropping culture. So that is where we advocate that the farming system should have a complementary crops that provide the income food for farmers. At the same time, it provides the ecological system services such as providing the shade, conserving the water, improving the soil health, and supporting the flora and fauna within that farming ecosystem. So as I said, the program was in the Uganda and Kenya, funded by IKEA Foundation. So particularly working with about 20,000 coffee farming families in these two countries through about 6 partner companies that are coffee trading companies located in these two countries. Main mention areas we chose was in the farming systems and how to restore or provide environment services, and finally private sector participation. So these interventions economically and operationally viable for the and these families would get access to different services for not just for their coffee value chain, but for other crops as well. And for us, it should be for IDH and other partners that are in this program. We want to learn and see how this can be provided at scale to other farmers within the coffee value chain, and also in other geographies in different value chains. So what are the that we learned from these 5 in these 2 countries? We learned that when we want to advocate regenerative agriculture, when we want to promote regenerative agriculture, it is always a context-specific approach. I mean, there is no out-of-the-box solutions that can be provided to any farmer across the region or across the country even. So it has to be context-specific, and it has to be understood in that particular region or set of farmers how these regenerative agriculture practices can be promoted. And that requires knowledge and data about that context, about the farmers, about the business. So it's very important to get all that data and take a data-centric approach. And when we have this, what are the benefits and what should be done to promote or encourage farmers to take up regenerative agriculture, which is in their interest and also in the business interest. It requires financial resources, it requires technical support, and it requires support in other in-kind services. And finally, it can't be done with just the existing companies or partners, right? It requires a new partnerships to be forged with different actors. It can be different service providers, different off-takers, or different experts who provide agronomic knowledge or even technical expertise, like what TAT, Mr. Yarama was explaining, such kind of companies. So, but all these partners would need to have clear business case on why they're participating in this particular activity, in this particular ecosystem of regenerative agriculture, and what is it for them if they participate. This will lead to, if all these things come together, that will lead to increase in farmer income profitability and income resilience. By income resilience, farmer income resilience, we define that there is less variation or less volatility in farmer income over the years, over the seasons, and also the farmer income is not just dependent on any one crop, right? I mean, if a large share of farmer income is coming from any one particular crop, any vagaries in that particular crop, it can be production or it can be prices, would lead to collapse of farmer income, exposing them to making them very vulnerable for that particular incident. So that is where, when we diversify the farming systems and we build the farmer income resilience to withstand for any such vulnerabilities or vagaries that happen in due course of the farming systems. And the second part is, this will also have to enhance the profitability of the company or the businesses that are working with these smallholder farmers. So this is where we take the private sector or business-centric approach, wherein it has to be a win-win situation for smallholder farmers and also for the private business. Only then the businesses will have the incentive to continue to participate in this ecosystem and provide these services and work with the smallholder farmers. So, what are the conditions that are required to make this regenerative agriculture, taking up regenerative agriculture required? So, I mean, what are the preconditions, or what are the key drivers or situations that need to be kept in mind before we can even embark on taking up the blended services to the farmers, and also asking them to transition to regenerative agriculture? So, as I said, it's very context specific, and it requires one to study the entire environment of that particular region, or even say a sub-district or a county where we are asking the farmers to take up the regenerative agriculture, regarding the policy and regulatory environment, the market dynamics, and farmer characteristics. So they vary quite a lot within the country and within the regions. So you can see how the farmers are organized, what is the regulatory framework for coffee value chain in Uganda and Kenya, and what variety of coffee is grown in those countries. And even the certification, variety and focus on certification vary a lot for each of these different companies. And also the price paid for the coffee also varies depending upon the variety, quality, certification. And coming to the farm characteristics itself, they vary a bit. And you can see that only few companies work with large farmers, whereas a lot of other companies, most of the companies work with small farmers where they have less than 1 acre of land, because as you know, in these countries, the land size of coffee farmers is relatively small. Overall, they might have about 2.5 acres. Of that, they split between coffee and other crops. So these things need to be clearly understood. What are the context-specific situations for these farmers? And then the second one is, what is the current farming system? How are the farmers approaching their entire portfolio of crops? Not just the main crop that the business is working with. In this case, it's coffee, but we wanted to understand which are the other crops the farmers are growing. And then if you want to transition to regenerative agriculture, which crops are required to be there in that particular system? What new crops need to be introduced, or what crop needs to be dropped or moved to lesser priority? This will be taken in each situation depending upon agronomic study that has to be conducted within that region of farmers to see what variety of crops can be grown there and what variety of crops farmers are interested to grow. So all those things need to be taken into consideration, and even a pilot project has to be done before it can be rolled out to the farmers. Based upon that approach, then they take up how to provide their blended services to the farmers. It can be either the farmers can choose different components of a package, or it can be a fixed package that the company would tell that, okay, please take up this way if you want to work, make the regenerative agriculture work. Then you have to consider all these things. There is no piecemeal approach for this one. So that is how the companies will approach in as well. It's important to understand farmers, because you need to understand different segments and different farmers before you can provide those tailored approaches to the regenerative agriculture. And most of the farmers are earning well below the poverty line. So that need to be seen how the income can be improved to bridge that income gap that they have to poverty line, and also to the living income. And agronomic knowledge is very important. As much as you understand a farmer situation, it's very important to understand the agronomic condition, because whenever you create this plan of strategy of taking up regenerative agriculture, how the practices, the crop choices, and in what size of land that should be allocated for different activities, you need to have clear agreement and definition about how to approach it. And you need to have an agronomist who will be there on the ground to help farmers learn these practices and implement these practices and crops in their system. And always we need to take a data centric approach, wherein always go by collecting the data and then only relying on the data. You need to design the strategies for regenerative agriculture. So in this case, for regenerative agriculture, only one company has actually had to undertake more pilots on the demo plots before they recommend such regenerative agriculture to a larger base of their farmers, because it involves financial investments as well as time investments for the farmers, and you can't expose the farmers to vagaries without really testing what are the outcomes that can be expected from such transition. So that these are the clear step-by-step approach that need to be taken. So it's not a just like a flipping of a switch, right? I mean, there is no on and off kind of thing to transition to regenerative agriculture, but it's a gradual, planned and phased approach to transition the farmers to regenerative agriculture. So initially, it should be assessing and making a plan, starting from your soil testing, what plant crop layout the currently farmers have, and then making a plan how to reach the desired phase where farmers would have made different practices and investments to restore soil and also implement diverse and functional crop and livestock ecosystem on their farms. So for this, what we suggest is that do the assessment and then start small with only selective and low-hanging fruit interventions, wherein the farmers don't have to, or company don't have to invest a lot of resources, but start with low intensive investment activities and see whether you can quickly break even those investments and whether you are moving in the direction of getting a positive cash flow from those interventions and those adaptations. And then you see whether the agreed upon milestones have been met or not, so that only depending upon whether those milestones are met and you have reduced the financial risk for farmers as well as for the company, and then you further scale it up and take up more crops and cover more area on farmers to expand the regenerative agriculture system to their entire farm. So you can see even the investments made by farmers as well as by the company is phased out and sequenced. So if they want to commit more resources, they will only do it depending upon what results have they got in the previous phase. Only based upon that, they would increase their resource commitment and not really put everything in one go and then expose themselves for the in case there might be some financial losses that might happen. And for this, farmers require the support, right? The know-how, the financial support, both from the company as well as the investments that are required to be made by farmers themselves. So we have these in-kind support, providing them with the right variety of seedlings, the right variety of livestock, and providing them market access by having the partnership with the respective companies. And this requires very close interaction with the farmers, because you are asking them to practice these regenerative agriculture practices, which may not be very complex, but that they need to do that consistently if they want to transition to regenerative agriculture and really get the benefits of it. They need to do it consistently. For that, they require the ongoing support from the company. And you can see here on the left-hand side, this is the investments made by the farmers themselves. And on the right-hand side, it is the investments that are made by the company which is working with these farmers, the coffee company which is working with the farmers. Most of the investments are required only in year 1 and year 2. And they reach, in most cases, their break-even from very beginning. So any investments they make toward regenerative agriculture, they would get from the crops because of the planned approach. They would start earning from those crops from year 1 itself, or rather break even or just positive from year 1 itself. And except for one company, all other farmers, they're all earning from year 2 onwards positive. Only farmers belonging to one company would start to earn from year 3 from their regenerative investments, because these are relatively big farmers who have already a good base of income, so that they can take up long gestation options, which would eventually pay off really well. But they can withstand that 1 or 2 years of investments, where from those particular investments they may not get positive returns, but still they can do that because of the long-term benefits and their ability to withstand. But for majority of the farmers, particularly smallholder farmers, we suggest to take an approach where they would be breaking even. That is, there is no loss of income for them net because of the additional investments they are required to make in the regenerative agriculture systems. And on the right hand side, you can see that the companies, except for one company, a lot of them, they don't have to really invest a lot of monetary resources into the regenerative agriculture system, because a lot of that would be on the farmers, but the companies have to provide more in-kind and technical support, not so much on the financial resources need to be committed. Yeah, so this is just a list of activities, different crops that are undertaken by each of the farmers of the companies, and what are the different services provided to the farmers, and on what areas the training is provided. And separately, we have listed whether finance is provided for that. That is, the loans. Does the company provide loans for farmers to undertake the regenerative agriculture? In most cases, they didn't provide finance, as explained earlier, because one thing is that they don't require a lot of finance, because we take a graded approach where farmers will try to generate resources from this activity itself. And also, companies don't want to commit a lot of financial resources for the other value chains than their own primary value chain in the beginning. But they are willing to provide all the other services, including the inputs at cost, and also the training without any charges. And most often they do provide or facilitate offtake of the produce from these diverse crops other than the coffee. In this case, that's the primary value chain crop of the companies. And you can see here what is the business case for these partners. One is that they're not really required to invest a lot of financial resources upfront, but more on the time investment is required. But they also have a clear business case in terms of two things. One is whether they will get to offtake the crops other than the primary crop, in this case coffee, and what is the value of that market value of those crops. They're quite sizable. You can see here that if coffee, the value of coffee from each typical farmer is say $100, these secondary crops that in the regenerative agriculture system sometimes are as big as the coffee value, and in some cases by year 5 they can even very well overtake the market value of coffee itself. And even in the regenerative agriculture system, it's not just the first main crop, but you have even the second crop of this diversified system is also quite attractive. In most cases, it's not very big, but still it's meaningfully sizable compared to the market value of coffee. All these metrics are in year 5, next year, in a span of 5 years. If they can implement all the practices in the regenerative agriculture, which comes through diversifying and implementing a very planned and coherent choice of crops and livestock in their farming systems, and also the day-to-day practices of regenerative agriculture. And when you compare that to whether this will help them to bridge the living income gap, only in 2 cases, they can close a substantial gap. In one company, they almost can close the living income gap of this much, but in other cases, they're falling short. That is mainly not because the regenerative agriculture is not profitable. It does increase their income quite substantially, but then the other key constraint is the land size. If the farmers have a larger land size, it's even more effective to undertake regenerative agriculture, because on every unit of land you have, your income is going to be so much higher. So yeah, for bridging the living income gap, this is the other challenge that need to be considered apart from just the regenerative agriculture. That is how to really provide non-farm income to farmers if they have very small land holding size. And this is just a visual representation of you can see in year one, it's just mainly the coffee farmer income. It is going to decrease because you have a lot of other crops. This is what we mean by resilience. That is, they're not just reliant on coffee alone, but they have the support from these other crops as well, in case if things don't go so well for coffee in a particular year or two. And the second business case for the company is these companies, in addition to the market value of these crops, other crops that they get, they also would increase the volume of coffee they source from each farmer. Because the productivity of coffee itself will increase, they would get more from these farmers because of that engagement. So the volume of coffee they source from farmers, same number of farmers does increase for these companies. And then the cost to serve, if you measure the cost to serve farmers from the amount of coffee you source, you can see a declining trend. For every unit of coffee you source, your cost to serve is declining, so resulting in the efficiency gains for the companies as well. So in conclusion, what are the key drivers of success and what are the key risks? As discussed earlier, it is very important to have a long-term transition plan. It is not an abrupt thing that can be done when you want to transition to regenerative farming, and you need to really segment the farmers appropriately and also the other immediately with low risk.
Okay, Maria, and if colleague Gift can share, so maybe we can stop sharing for now, and my colleague will share from our ends.
Okay, all right, sounds good. So I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Marianne Alpert. It's a pleasure to be here. I've really enjoyed the conversation so far. There are so many different aspects to improving productivity in agriculture, to help increase productivity. So I think you're going to have to advance the slides for me. Or maybe I can do it. Let me see if it's up to me here. Okay. So basically, I think we've seen the problem is quite clear that so many people in Tanzania and East Africa are relying on agriculture for their livelihood. And irrigation is one of the big gaps where most farmers are not irrigating. Now, with all the rains we're having right now, it's a little bit it's a little bit less obvious what the challenge there is with having water, but we do know that the droughts come as often as the floods. So this is something that we're trying to manage. So with solar water pumps, next slide. With solar water pumps, Solar is able to increase the productivity of farmers and to make them affordable and accessible. So that's really been our challenge, is how to make them affordable and accessible. Next slide. So let me just get into the different challenges that we're tackling. Next slide. Basically, manual labor is really severely limiting the output of farms, and getting access to equipment is really quite difficult, even though that is the thing that really makes a difference. One of the key things that makes a difference in productivity. We've heard about many other issues in terms of agricultural practices and seed quality and all the different issues that were brought up by the presenter from top. That was very useful, and also the previous presenter. But in terms of what we're able to provide, what we're providing is the equipment that provides for irrigation, and in particular, the barriers to getting solar water pumps include the fact that the design is very complicated and unfamiliar, and of course, having capital to be able to access this equipment is one of the key barriers, and there's just limited access. Like, you can't really go around the corner and get a system. So next slide. So Simu Solar is addressing these issues by providing on-site design and underwriting and financing and full service installation. So this is just one example of farmers that we've provided solar water pumps with, and they have increased their income by 40%. They're saving hours every day, and they've expanded their farm and created more jobs. Next slide. So that's just one example. And generally the steps that we go through, so that's the first step that we've solved. Next slide. Where our team will go out to the farm with a smartphone. Next slide. And they use the app on their smartphone to enter in some basic information like the water source, the depth of the water, the slope of the farm, the size of the array. And basically what they get out of that is they get the best pump option for that farm. So it's a custom design that even though they're not engineers, they are able to get the custom design very quickly based on the requirements of that specific farm. And it will choose which pump they need and the size of the array and the pipe size and all of the different solutions required to make a system that really works for that farmer. Next slide, please. As we've mentioned, one of the main issues is that people don't have access to capital, farmers especially, are very limited in the access to capital. And you can see, though, that if they can add irrigation, typically their income will increase significantly, and 50 to 200%, depending on the farm and the way they're doing it. So if they have access to capital, then that's the result they can see. Next slide, please. And again, the reason that farmers are not able to access capital is that funders are considering farmers very high risk. So we can make farmers bankable because the only collateral we require is the equipment itself, the solar water pumps. So using IoT technology, we have remote control and monitoring of the equipment. And so we're able to do a pay-as-you-go system, which people are familiar with solar lighting systems, where the customer will prepay. So they pay at the beginning of the month, and then the system is working. And if for some reason they can't afford it, then the system turns off until they make the next payment. But we're seeing that farmers really can afford it because they are seeing significantly increased yields. Next slide, please. So basically, we do the on-site evaluation, we provide financing, we do the installation, educate on use, and we provide a 2-year warranty and after-sales service. And this is what makes this equipment working now for smallholder farmers in Tanzania and Uganda. So we're Simu Solar in Tanzania, we work in Uganda as Tulima Solar. Next slide, please. In Simu Solar, we have 9 different offices. You can see from this map, we're all over the country, and we're providing pumps in every area that we can from the offices that we have. Next slide, please. We have over 15 different pumps. So we have surface pumps for those farmers who are using surface water, please. And I think we've heard from many people here the issues of the challenges that farmers are facing, but given the impacts of climate change, it's expected to be even more severe and even more of a concern over time that access to water is going to be a challenge without any kind of equipment available. Next slide, please. So Simu Solar's platform that we use to provide pay-as-you-go financing for equipment can be used for a lot of different equipment. So for example, we're looking at post-harvest processing equipment. We've looked at irrigation, not only irrigation, but also tilling machines and seed planting. And there are a number of different types of equipment that can be climate change. The hazards that include water scarcity and drought, changing rainfall patterns, increased rainfall, as we're seeing this year, increased weather extremes and variability, and shifts in season. And we're already starting to see these issues come up, climate change. Of course, reduced productivity food insecurity, loss of livelihood, less income they generate, and the regional economic impact. So when farmers aren't able to plan when they should plant, when they should irrigate, when they'll be able to harvest, it really gets to be a very, very, and those companies, they really do have to mitigate it so that they have water available regardless of the rainfall patterns, and that's really the key that we're going after. Next slide, please. Providing water pumps, especially solar-powered equipment, or we're impacting many of the